Today, the People's Republic of China is a major world superpower. China has a very large population of 1.3 billion people. China also has the world's fastest major growing economy. China's economy is also the second largest after the United States. China is also known as a nuclear weapons state. But the question is, how did China come to all this success? It had to go through many major changes in order to become so. One of these major changes was the fall of the Qing Dynasty. This change paved the way for future adjustments in China's government by transitioning from 2,000 years of absolute monarchy to a period of being a republic, later leading into an establishment of communism in 1949. The Qing Dynasty was the last dynasty in China, ruling from 1644 to 1912. The Qing Dynasty adapted the Mandate of Heaven.
The Mandate of Heaven is a concept like the divine right of kings in Europe that says this family, which we call a dynasty, and this individual, whom we call in English the emperor, have the right, have the power, have a legitimate place at the top, not only of the state, but of the cosmos.
Imperial corruption, revolts, natural disasters, and defeats in wars against the Europeans greatly weakened the Qing Dynasty in the 19th century. The government attempted to modernize during the self-straightening movement in the late 19th century, and it yielded few lasting results. However, China eventually realized that the movement wasn't very effective when it was defeated by the Japanese in the First Sino-Japanese War in 1894 to 1895. The result of that loss demonstrated that reforms had modernized and benefited Japan since the Meiji Restoration in 1867 and surpassed the self-strengthening movement in China. Emperor Xianfeng, who was ruler of the Qing Dynasty in the 19th century, needed a son and had many concubines, but only one of them, Xixi, bore a son, and that made her an empress. Emperor Xianfeng died in 1861 at the age of 30. His primary wife, Xixi's cousin Xi'an, had a daughter, but no sons. Therefore, Xixi's 5-year-old son, Tongzhi, became the emperor. But Xixi's greed for power became uncontainable, and finally, in 1865, she seized the throne. She was a strong ruler and put down the rebellions which threatened her. During her years in power, the Western nations gained great influence in China. But Xixi resisted the foreign influence in China, despite the inventions they have brought to China. The empress's greed for wealth brought down China as well, putting her own interests ahead of the nations. The empress used her money on personal luxuries like banquets and jewels. She drank from a jade cup and ate with golden chopsticks. She used the Chinese Navy funds to build herself a lavish summer palace. This financial corruption weakened China's military. Xixi's son Tongzhi died with no heir to the throne. Xixi, desperate for power, had her 3-year-old nephew Guangzhu take the throne. In 1889, he directed the 100 Days Reform after listening to the foreigners, unlike Xixi, who still resisted their influence. Eventually, he became fearful of the empress and surrendered all of his power to her.
In the last decade of its rule, the Qing tried to reform. They tried all kinds of new ideas, mostly based on the experience in Japan. But they were too little too late.
Empress Xixi Dowager expressed more concern for her personal benefits rather than the nation's, which was one of the largest factors for leading to the decline of the Qing Dynasty and ignited the flame of the Xinhai Revolution. Sun Yat-sen, or Sun Wen, was the leader of the 1911 revolution that brought down the Qing Dynasty, and he became the founding father of the Republic of China. In 1891, Sun met revolutionary friends in Hong Kong. The group was spreading the idea of overthrowing the Qing Dynasty. In 1894, Sun wrote an 8,000-character petition to Qing Viceroy Li Hongjian, presenting his ideas for modernizing China. He traveled to Tianjin to personally present the petition to Li, but was not granted an audience. After this experience, Sun turned toward revolution. He left China for Hawaii and founded the revived China Society, which was committed to revolutionize China's prosperity. With his group, he launched an uprising in China within the city Guangzhou. However, they were compromised and the plan failed, having Sun Yat-sen exiled. After his exile, Sun came back to China to continue the overthrow of China to the Xinhai Revolution. Sun planned and launched yet another uprising in Wuchang, today referred to as a Wuchang Uprising. The Qing government responded in October by ordering Commander-in-Chief Yuan Shikai and the Beiyang army to suppress the uprising in Wuchang. Huang Xin, one of the revolutionary leaders, arrived in Wuhan in early November to take command of the revolutionary army. The revolutionaries and the loyalists fought a battle in Hankou and Hanyang, known as the Battle of Yangxia, that would last until December. Although the revolutionaries eventually captured both towns, Yuan Shikai halted the advance of the Beiyang army and agreed to a ceasefire. Negotiations began on December 1st, 1911.
It's not just the problem of getting an army out there to defeat these rebels, but also the drain on the finances.
After the Wuchang Uprising, the revolutionaries telegraphed the other provinces asking them to declare their independence, and 15 provinces in the southern China did so. Representatives from the seceding provinces met and declared the founding of the Republic of China on January 1st, 1912. Sun Yat-sen would return to China in December 1911 to be elected provisional president of the Republic of China. He eventually agreed to have the seceding provisional president as Yuan Shikai in exchange for Yuan's help in persuading the last empire to abdicate. The Qing dynasty could no longer govern itself since it had forfeited the mandate of heaven. On February 12, 1912, Emperor Pu Yi stepped down from the throne, making him the last emperor. This brought an end to the imperial era. Following the abdication of Empress Longyu and Emperor Pu Yi, the road was paved for Sun Yat-sen to turn China into a republic. However, Yuan Shikai had most of the power in Beijing and became the second provisional president. In August 1912, Song Jiaoren founded China's Nationalist Party, where Song campaigned against Yuan. Song was an able campaigner, and he won a majority of seats. But the following March, Yuan had Song assassinated, which threatened the nationalists. An intimidated parliament declared Yuan as president of China for the rest of his life. Over time, Yuan's current power was not enough for him. He announced that China would take a step back into absolute monarchy. From here, uproars and rebellions occurred. Provinces declared independence and became military factions. In 1916, Yuan died from desertion by his lieutenants. The government was lacking and was comprised of rivaling warlords. This was when Russia and communism began to have an effect on China. However, communism was later expelled in Kuomintang, which eventually toppled. China then went through a period of wars such as World War I and the Second Sino-Japanese War.
The Qing Empire became the Republic of China, which wasn't really a republic but a military state, which then became the People's Republic of China, a communist state. So it's not as if all of these empires followed the same path. But with the fall of these empires, the old world is really gone.
The fall of the Qing dynasty was one of the major turning points for China. It modernized the form of government for China by making the transition from monarchs and the mandate of heaven to more westernized form of governments, like the Republic. Without the contributions of Sun Yat-sen and the rest of the revolutionaries, China might have continued the line of absolute monarchy and might have never been what they were today.